first title notes today is titled Review Factoring. First question is 2x plus 10. One way to factor is to take out the greatest common factor or the number that divides both of the terms. The number that goes into 2 and 10 would be 2. And then you put parentheses after and divide each of these by 2. The 2's divide out, you're left with x. And 10 divided by 2 would be 5. Next factoring question is 6y squared plus 8y. Again, we will take out the greatest common factor or the biggest number that divides both of the coefficients. 6 and 8, 2 again goes into both of those. This time they both have the same variable, the same letter y, so we can take out 2y. And again, we'll divide each of these terms by 2y. 6 divided by 2 would be 3. Y squared, we're dividing or taking out 1y, so we'll be left with 3y. Plus sign comes over. 8 divided by 2 would be 4. And the y divides out or cancels out. So you're left with 2y and 3y plus 4. Last question for review is x squared plus 5x plus 6. When we have a trinomial with a variable squared, the same variable in a number, this one we can factor by drawing the x or the diamond. Last number 6 goes on top of the x. The middle number 5 goes on bottom of the x. And we need two numbers that multiply to get the top number and add to get the bottom number. In this case, two numbers that multiply to get 6, and those same two numbers add to get 5. In this case, the answer would be 3 and 2. Your final answer in parentheses with x would be x plus 3 and x plus 2. The last section of notes today is titled Simplify, Rational Expressions. The one definition or step for this question is to factor and reduce. The first question for this section is 6a plus 9 divided by 12. The definition of a rational expression is a fraction that contains a variable or a letter. To simplify, we'll first factor. We'll factor the numerator when possible and factor the denominator when possible. For example, the numerator, if we have 6 and 9, we can factor a 3 out of each of those numbers. Dividing by 3, we're left with 2a, and 9 divided by 3 would be 3. 12 is just a number or integer, which would stay the same. To reduce, if we have a coefficient or numbers that are left alone without variables, we can reduce those coefficients. For example, 3 and 12, we can divide each of those by 3. For the numerator, 3 divided by 3 would be 1, or it cancels out, and we're left with 2a plus 3. For the denominator, we have 12 divided by 3, which would be 4. And your final answer, 2a plus 3 over 4. The 2 and 4 do not reduce. If you have a plus sign for the expression, when dividing by 2, each number would have to be divided by 2. So your final answer would be 2a plus 3 over 4. Second question. It's 2m minus 5 divided by 6m minus 15. Again, for rational expressions, factor out the numerator separately and then factor out the denominator separately. In this question we have 2 and 5. There's no number besides 1 that goes into 2 and 5, so it cannot be factored simplified, so it's just 2m minus 5. For the denominator, 6 and 15, the biggest number that goes into 6 and 15 would be 3. And again, dividing each of these by 3, we're left with 2m, and 15 divided by 3 would be 5. In this problem, we have the same term, 2m minus 5, and the same term on the bottom, 2m plus 2m minus 5, both exactly the same. So what we can do is divide those or cancel those out. For the final answer, we have a 3, which is on the denominator or bottom of the fraction. There's no number left on top, but if there's no number left on top, it's kind of like an imaginary 1. So your final answer would be 1 over 3. And last question for the section. 4x to the third divided by 28, x to the fourth. In this question, there's just one term in the numerator and one term in the denominator. There's no term separated by a plus or minus sign. So in that case, we can't factor, but we can reduce right from the beginning. In this case, we have 4 and 28. Each of those numbers we can divide by 4. 4 divided by 4, we can put 1 on top of the fraction, and 28 divided by 4 would be 7 on the bottom of the fraction. If you remember exponents, we'll be subtracting when we divide. X to the third minus divided by x to the fourth, subtract the exponents. 3 minus 4 would be negative 1. And also, if you remember from exponents, when you have a negative exponent, we can move that term to the bottom of the fraction and make that a positive x to the 1. The 7 would stay the same. The 1 would come over. And your final answer, 1 over 7x.